Hey, um, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of egalitarians versus white knights. I was going to say versus male feminists, but that would be a little bit unfair because the people I'm talking about, it wouldn't be fair to label all male feminists in that way. Nevertheless, I think a lot of them do fall into this line of thinking, so to speak. So the context of this is that I've had a little bit of back and forth with a guy online who took issue with something I said. It was on a feminist video, and I hadn't been crude in my comment. I hadn't been crass, but what I did say was I will believe that feminism is about equality when feminists care about, and I named some of the issues that I brought about before, issues like male homelessness and other things that disproportionately impact men. Well, this guy laid into me verbally and called me defender of the patriarchy and all this sort of stuff. We had a bit of back and forth, and I'll be honest, at times I use less than diplomatic language. I'm the sort of person that give fire with fire. If someone's rude to me, I'm rude right back. Um, so that's that. But it got me thinking about something, which is that there are some men out there who ostensibly support women's rights or stand up for women either online or in general. Um, and it makes me really question the sort of thinking that they have. Now, I differentiate between this and other guys who stand up for women. Let me try and explain. Um, as a man, I will always defend my female friends, women I care about in my life. Of course, I will. Not only because, not because they're women necessarily, but because they're friends, because I care about them, because I like them as people, because I feel a natural loyalty to them. Um, and I have seen misogynist behavior online. I have seen guys refer to women in a way that's unacceptable. I came across a video about mixed race issues, and there was some men coming out with really hateful comments against some of the female YouTubers on there simply for saying that they support mixed relations. No other reason. That's why they were being attacked. So I did defend them because it was a clear example of misogyny. That was blatant, blatant. But I find that there are so-called white knights, and this is not a term I frequently use, but I'm using it for this context because I do think it applies here, who seem to defend women because of a false sense of nobility. Um, and the thing that irritates me about these people is it's one thing defending women, but when you go around denigrating your fellow men all the time, not only are your fellow men going to hate your guts, but you make yourself look like a bit of a joke. I mean, like, here's the thing, regarding male feminists. If you're a man who describes yourself as a feminist, I respect your position. But you have to respect the fact that there's other men who do believe in equality who don't call themselves feminists. You have to respect that. Um, I don't believe that every man who calls himself a feminist, for example, is opposed to men's issues being discussed or anything like that. And to be fair, there are male feminists who will highlight these issues. Nevertheless, I do think there is a general trend among male feminists to be subservient. I'm yet to see a male feminist, for example, have any disagreement whatsoever with a female feminist. And I think this has less to do with agreeing than a sense of guilt. I do think that fundamentally male feminists are driven by a sense of guilt. Um, does this mean they're all self-hating men? Of course not. Of course not. And it wouldn't be fair to say so. Certainly, there's parts of the world where there's specific women's rights issues and men speak up for them. To give a recent example, in Afghanistan, of all places, there was a group of men who decided to go out in the burqa one day to kind of show their fellow men what it was like to be a woman in that country. Now, I completely salute those guys. That takes courage. That takes balls. Okay? Are they male feminists? In a sense, they are. So please don't think this is an attack on all male feminists. There are male feminists In fact, I could even be described in some ways as a male feminist in the sense that I support specific women's rights movements in certain parts of the world. So in that sense, I guess I'm a male feminist in that regard. But I don't endorse Western feminism for all the reasons I've said in previous videos. I don't want to keep repeating myself. Um, but I do find that debating with these people is not easy because, first of all, they demonize you as being a misogynist, as being a woman hater. If you dare question feminism in any way, then you must be a woman hater. You must be opposed to women's rights, and you must be a caveman who wants to keep women down. This is the sort of narrow thinking that you have to deal with these people. Um, Occasionally, I've had civil debates, but I find a lot of these guys are. I mean, I looked at this guy's web history just out of interest, and every single comment he has made in the last few months has been rants about the patriarchy, men this, men that, and misogynistic men. So I don't know if this is a woman feminist, like pretending she's male just so she could be a troll, or if it is a male feminist who he actually said in one video, "I'm ashamed of my Y chromosome." And I do think a lot of male feminists, a lot, not everyone, are driven by that sort of mentality. And I think that's utterly pathetic. Not only it's pathetic because you're beating yourself up over something that's not your fault, i.e., the action, if you get, for example, a rapist or a man who does treat a woman badly, that's not your fault. You don't have to personally apologize. Speak out against it by all means, but ashamed of your Y chromosome? Really? I'm not ashamed to be a man. For the record, I'm not ashamed to be a white man either. I'm not proud of it because it's not, it's, it's got absolutely nothing to do with achievement. It's just a state of being. I'm born male, I'm born white. Fine. It's got absolutely nothing to do with something that you should be proud of or ashamed of. Do I recognize what other men do? Yes, of course I do. But as sure as hell, I'm not going to feel ashamed of it. And I sure as hell will not join a movement or slavishly endorse a movement that I think is fundamentally divisive. No, I'm not going to do that. What I would say to male feminists is, by all means, call yourself that, but do not try to tell other men how to think. Do not slander other men as misogynists when you barely know them. If they are being blatantly misogynist, i.e., hating women, which is what the definition is, fine, that's a different matter. But when someone is simply saying they don't agree with feminism, that is not misogynist. And if you think it is, you're a very narrow minded person. It's a bit like saying you have to be a socialist to believe in, I don't know, the minimum wage. It's a ridiculous idea that people have to pigeonhole themselves into an ideology to prove a point. It's utterly ridiculous. You know, I believe in enterprise. I believe in business. That doesn't mean I'm a slavish capitalist. Doesn't mean I'm uncritical of capitalism. I believe in the minimum wage and a welfare state. It doesn't mean I'm a blind socialist. The point I'm making here is it is odious to try and dictate to other people how they should think. Odious. You can criticize other people if you think they're wrong, but you better have good basis for it. Um, I am prepared to stand by everything I have said online because on the occasions where I do sometimes make mistakes, when I misjudge someone, I am man enough to admit it and apologize to that person, and I've done so. But I will stand by my conviction. And I know, for example, I completely support women's rights, you know, I'm not the sort of person to just say that to please people. If I didn't, I wouldn't bother saying I do. I do, actually. And I've made over 1,000 videos. I'm sure there's several videos at least that I'm talking about issues that impact women. I've made several videos talking about issues that impact men. I think it's about 50-50, the sort of coverage I've made to both. I have made a lot of videos attacking feminism, and I stand by that. My only regret is not the content of the videos, but that I may be repeating myself. That's the only regret I have, is it may give the notion that I'm obsessed by this, and I hope I'm not. But yeah, that's all I want to say, really. If you are a male feminist, I've got nothing against you. I respect the fact that you believe in women's rights, but I would say if you really believe in egalitarianism, you also have to indicate that you care about issues that disproportionately impact men. And if you don't, then you're a hypocrite. You cannot preach equality whilst callously ignoring the suffering of your fellow men. You know, that's ridiculous. So you cannot rant and rave about the patriarchy and then turn a blind eye to the fact that 75% of homeless people in this country are male. That isn't scaremongering or pandering to MRA ideology. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. That's another quick thing I want to say. Just because someone criticizes feminism does not mean they're automatically an MRA. I'm not an MRA simply because I don't want to pigeonhole myself into a movement which I think can sometimes be just as divisive as feminism. The problem I have with MRA movements is sometimes they they use the same language as feminists. In other words, they play the victimhood mentality. And I have seen MRAs outright deny that there are issues that impact women and try to say that rape doesn't occur in stupid things like this. So that's why I'm not comfortable automatically associating myself with MRA movements, although I very much understand why they've come about. So my final message to male feminists is this: if you're open-minded, if you respect other people's right to not pigeonhole themselves in a certain way, then I've got respect for you, and I'm not against you. And I don't think you're any less of a man or anything like that. In fact, I think you're probably a decent person. I support women's rights, and I would definitely protest, for example, against honor killings, against acid attacks, against rape being used as a weapon of war, all that sort of thing. But I'm not a feminist, and I don't have to be. And that's what you guys need to understand. You cannot, you cannot dictate to others how to think. Um, right, I'll leave it there.